Hey guys, it's Bethany, your crafty BFF, on today with a tutorial for what I'm calling the Ultra Mini Album. This is the smallest mini album slash embellishment book I have ever made by far. It is 4.5 inches wide by 6.5 inches tall with a 2.5 inch spine. It has 4 signature pocket pages and pockets on the inside and back covers. I do have a seam binding closure. It even has room at the top for a little dangle. That's not going to be part of this tutorial, but the base and all of the matting will be. This will be a 2-part tutorial because I can only record for about an hour at a time, and it takes time to make even a small album. So I will do a quick flip through here so you know what we're getting into. Like I said, the front inside cover does have this flip up with a magnetic closure and a small pocket here. Page 1 has a belly band that you can tuck some packaged goodies into. Each page is a pocket page, so they open up like this to stuff goodies in if you'd like. Pages 2 and 3 have nothing on them. They're just flat pages that you can display embellishments with removable adhesive dots. You can like put several embellishments on one page or just one larger embellishment on a page. I like to make these chipboard mini albums as embellishment books because so that the recipient can use that as an actual photo album after they've taken the embellishments out. So like I said, each page is a pocket page. Pages 4 and 5 here have tall side pockets that you can stuff packaged goodies into. Pages 6 and 7 are flat pages. Again, you can put individual embellishments on the pages with removable adhesive dots. And the last page is plain as well. And then the inside back cover has the same size flip with the same size pocket as the front inside cover does. So that's what we're going to make today. It's not super interactive, but interactive enough. I think it's fun. So we're going to start with our chipboard pieces. We need 2 pieces that are 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches, and then we need a 2.5 inch by 6.5 inch piece for your spine. Once you have those cut out, you're going to get 2 pieces of 65-pound cardstock. These measure 8.5 by 11. I have added a piece of double-sided tape here on the very edge of the paper. If you can see, we're going to attach these two together to make one long piece to wrap our chipboard with. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the backing of that tape. I'm going to get my wet glue here. Of course, it's dried up. Hold on. Let me get a little pin and unclog it. There we go. I like to add my wet adhesive on top of my double-sided tape to give me a couple of extra seconds to get my pages lined up as perfectly as I can get them, like so. I'm going to varnish that down, and there we go. Now we have our long piece of cardstock here that we can wrap our chipboard with. I like to start with the spine, and I put it in the middle of the paper where where we attached the two pieces of paper together, so that that attachment runs right down the center of the spine. The spine will be covered with the mat, so you won't see that line anyways. It'll be covered up, but this helps hide it better. So make sure you put your spine right on top of that, right in the middle. You want to make sure that you're leaving an equal amount of space at the top and the bottom. At least I try to anyways. Doesn't always happen, but we are going to trim this down a little bit anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter. As long as you get that spine piece right in the middle of where these two pages overlap. I'm going to use my bone folder to spread that glue around underneath this chipboard. I'm going to take, one of my, I'm throwing it across the desk. Take one of my pieces that measure 4.5 by 6.5, and I'm going to add my glue. Some people like to use double-sided tape, and I normally would, but because this is such a such a small album and it's not that heavy, I don't think it's needed, so I'm just using my wet adhesive. But you do you. If you want to use your double-sided tape, you go right ahead. I am lining this up so that it's even with my spine, and there is an 1/8 of an inch gap between the two pieces of chipboard. You want that 1/8 of an inch space there so that your book can bend. I'm going to take my second piece of 4.5 by 6.5 inch chipboard, add my wet adhesive, and again I'm going to line it up here against the left side of the spine this time, again leaving that 1/8 of an inch space between the two pieces of chipboard. And there we have it. Again, I'm varnishing this down so that it gets nice and stuck and that glue gets spread around. Now we're going to trim up this cardstock because we simply don't need that much bulk. So I'm going to take about 1 inch off all the way around. Does not have to be perfect because we're going to fold this over anyways and it won't be seen. I like to leave about 1.5 inches to fold over the chipboard. On all 4 sides. And there we have it. Now we're going to cut the corners off of this piece of cardstock so that when we so when we wrap the chipboard, we don't have this extra bulk cardstock. So you're going to leave about 1/8 of an inch space past your chipboard. Like so. If you're new to my channel, then this might be the first time you're seeing this. If you have been a subscriber for a while, then you've done this with me lots of times. We're leaving, like I said, about 1/8 of an inch space between the corner of your chipboard and where you cut off your cardstock. That's important. And here's the last corner. Like so. Now we're going to start gently bending the cardstock around the chipboard. gently working it in so that your cardstock doesn't crack. We don't like cracked cardstock. Once you have it worked in, then you can go in with your bone folder and crease it down. But make sure you work it in first, just to avoid that cracking. I use the 65-pound cardstock that I use to make my albums. I get it from Michael's, and I rarely have it. I don't think I've ever had issues with it cracking. What just happened? My phone's being weird. Okay. That's weird. Did you see it just zoom in on its own? So weird. Huh. Okay. Now that like I was saying, I don't think I've ever had issues with the Michaels cardstock cracking. So, anyways, let's add our double-sided tape to our edges. I like to add a piece at the very edge of the cardstock, like so. And then I like to add another piece right up against the chipboard, like so. I'm going to do that on all four sides. Again, right up against the chipboard. And then finally, this last side, right up against the edge and right up against the chipboard. And use my bone folder to press down the tape and make sure it gets stuck to that paper really well before we peel the backing off of the tape. Now I'm going to take my pokey tool again and remove the backing. I like to start at the bottom, removing the tape and adding my wet adhesive on top of and in between the double-sided tape. And then I'm going to just bend it over around the cardstock. Like I said, these edges don't have to be perfect because they're going to be covered anyways. Next, I like to do the top edge. Add my wet adhesive. And then bend it down around the chipboard. Use my bone folder to get it nice and stuck down. And now I'm going to do the sides. Before I take the backing off the tape, I am going to tuck in my corners here. Focus, please. Okay, so you can see here, I'm going to tuck this little corner in right up against the chipboard. I'm going to do it to this side as well. That's so that you don't have a really sharp, pointy, pokey edge. You tuck that in, and then you won't have a really sharp corner that pokes you. So that's an important step. I'm removing the tape, adding my wet adhesive, and then I'm folding this over. finally my fourth side. Why is my camera doing that? Okay. I'm gonna tuck these corners in again. There we go. Tuck the corners in. Sorry my camera is being really weird today. There, hopefully that fixes it. I don't know what's going on. But I don't need a blurry tutorial video, that's for darn sure. So I tucked my little corners in. I removed the backing of my tape. And I'm going to add my glue here. And finally lay down this fourth and final side. There's a little piece of tape sticking out there, so I'm taking that off and pressing down with my bone folder. Before we bend this chipboard, we're gonna let all that wet glue dry. So while you wait for it to dry, you're going to cut yourself a few more pieces of 65-pound cardstock. This cardstock is going to cover your chipboard here. So you need 2 pieces that measures 4 3/8 by 6 3/8. 2 pieces of that, again 65-pound cardstock. And then you need 1 piece of 65-pound cardstock that is 5 7/8 by 8.5 inches. This is going to be our hinge system. So so cut those out, and then you're going to need your scoreboard. And you're going to take that piece that you cut at 5 7/8 inches by 8.5 inches, and we're going to do some scoring. I will keep that right there while we do the scoring. Why is my camera not focusing? So weird. Okay, we're going to line our piece of 5 7/8 by 8.5 inches up on our scoreboard. And on the 8.5 inch side, we're going to start scoring. The first score mark is going to be at 1.5 inches. Then we're going to do 2 inches, 3.5. No, 2.5. Sorry, 2.5. 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, and 7. That's going to leave you 1.5 inches on both sides. I call these the wings because these are what helps hold the spine, the hinge system, into your book binding. So now that you have your piece of cardstock scored, we're going to do some folding. I'm going to take a drink really quick. I'm trying to fix my camera. Okay, I think that's okay. And what we're going to do is do a series of mountain folds. So you have your first score line here. You're going to skip that one. And your second score line is the one that you're going to crease so that you have a mountain fold. I like to take it and fold it over and then crease it down with my bone folder, and then I fold it back and crease it down with my bone folder. So then you have your first mountain. We're going to skip this next score line because that's our gusset, our first gusset, and we're going to fold the next score line. Nice, crease it down, and then I take it like this and I fold it forward, and then I fold it backwards. I do this because it starts to work in the paper and make your hinges be able to turn left to right without any obstruction. You want these hinges to be really flexible so your pages turn easily. We're going to skip the next one because that's our gusset, and we're going to go to the next score line and do another mountain fold so that it looks like a mountain. We're going to fold it forward, crease it down, and fold it backwards and crease it down. Skip the next one because that's our gusset, and then fold this second to last score line there, like so. And again, we're going to fold it forward and fold it backwards. Okay, your piece should look like this. Mountain, valley, mountain, valley, mountain, valley, mountain, valley. Now we're going to do some gluing. Here is our first, we're going to glue our mountain pieces together so that they look like this, if that makes sense. So I add my glue here to my first little hinge, and then I fold this down and press down to spread that glue around and really get it stuck together. So it looks like this. Okay. You skip this one because it's our gusset, and you add glue to the next one. Now it's hard to see with the white on white, but we're going to fold this forward so that those two pieces come together and press down. Now you have two of these. You're going to skip this one because it's our gusset. Add our glue here. Again, I'm going to fold this over onto the glued side and press down. Now we have 3 hinges, and we just got to do our 4th. So skip this one here and add your glue to the next one, the second to last hinge right there. And then fold that over onto the other side. And I'm just pressing down to really get them stuck together. There we have it. We have our hinge system. It folds, they all fold to the left and they all fold to the right. And this is what it should look like. Now we're going to add double-sided tape to our back here, our back piece, the back of your hinge system. So I like to lay that down flat. I'm taking my 1-inch double-sided tape and adding it to my wings, which again, I said the wings are the 1.5-inch spaces on either side of the hinges. I'm just slapping that down right there in the middle. I'm really varnishing it down to get it nice and stuck. And now I'm going to take my 1/4-inch tape and add them. I'm going to add one more here to the wing itself because there's some extra space there. And then I'm going to add a piece of this 1/4-inch double-sided tape to each of these spots here. One, two, and three. I'm going to use my bone folder and really press them down. And that's what your back should look like. We're going to go ahead and add our double-sided tape to our hinges right now because I find it easier to add it now than after you've added this into your binding. So let me get some more tape here. Looks like I gotta open a new one. Actually, no, I don't. I found some red line tape that'll work. So anyways, I found this red line tape. It's perfect. It's a 1/4-inch, and I'm going to add it to the very edge of my hinges here. So not here towards the bottom, not where the score line is, but at the very edge of the hinge. It's important to add it as close to the hinge as you can because when you slide your page on, if it's too close to where the score lines are, it can hinder the way your page flips from left to right, and we don't want that. So we leave some space there so our pages can flip freely. Forgot I have to cut this red line tape. Don't love that. I like tearing it. But that's all I got right now. I don't want to open a new one if I don't have to. Red line tape or score tape will work for this. I like to use score tape and wet adhesive when I add my pages because I don't trust just one adhesive to keep my pages in. I like to be extra sure that my pages are not going to fall out of my book because then it would be ruined and nobody wants a ruined book. So I don't take chances. And finally, I'm doing this 4th and final hinge. I'm doing the front and back of each hinge. You can see there. And finally, this last hinge on the back. There we go. Now, just like the score tape, I like to press this down with my bone folder on both sides. So I turn the hinge to the left, press down, and then I turn the hinge to the right and press down again, just to make sure that tape is really sticking to the hinge. And that also helps work in the pages so that the hinges turn freely and easily. Okay, now that we've made our hinge system and this has had time to dry, we can go ahead and bend our book like so. So that is actually looks like a book instead of a flat piece of chipboard. And we're gonna go ahead and add our hinge system here into the book. I'm going to score here so that hopefully we can see these where these lines are a little easier, like so. And I'm gonna start taking the backing of the tape off of the back of the hinges. Leave that on until we add our pages, so just the back. Start taking your backings off. Man, that double-sided tape was on my floor and got so dirty. Gross. Good thing nobody can see it once it's laid down, right? There's your last piece. If you went over the edge with your double-sided tape at all, make sure you fold it back on top of itself, because you don't want any of that double-sided sticky tape sticking out, because dirt and everything will stick to it, as you can plainly see. Now, like I said, I don't trust one adhesive alone to hold in my entire hinge system that is going to hold my heavy pages. So I'm adding my wet glue all around the edges of the hinge system. And I'm going to add it on top of the double-sided tape as well. Why chance only one adhesive holding in all of your hard work? That's why I use both the double-sided tape and the wet adhesive. And now we're going to line this up so that our hinges are here in the middle of the 2.5-inch spine. And you want to leave about the same amount of space on the top and the bottom. Make sure they're in there nice and straight so that all your pages go in straight. And I'm going to start varnishing it down. I added a little too much glue and it's pouring out the sides, but better too much than too little, in my opinion anyways. Use my Teflon bone folder to wipe it away. And I'm pressing down here on this left wing and this right wing first. And now I'm going to lay my hinges down to the left, and I'm going to press all the way up and down the first hinge. I'm going to take the hinge to the left and make sure I press down here on this gusset. I'm going to press the second hinge down to the right, making sure that any air pockets trapped underneath this hinge system, I'm working those air bubbles out, like so. Folded it to the left and pressed again, and then pressed down here in the gusset. Fold this third hinge down to the right, press, fold it to the left, press. I'm going over this third gusset, and finally the fourth hinge, making sure there any air pockets get pressed out, and then to the left. It also really ensures that those hinges are flowing freely to the left and right, and also getting all the air pockets out. So there we have it. There's our hinge system in place. And now we're going to take our 2 pieces that we cut earlier of the 4 3/8 by 6 3/8, and we're going to glue them in like so that it helps hold the wings in and covers all this chipboard. So I'm just adding glue to the edges and then in the middle. Making sure to line it up here to the very edge of my front cover. I'm avoiding covering where the chipboard, that 1/8 of an inch where the chipboard meets, because the less paper you have covering that bend, the better. So I'm making sure that this piece is not covering that bend. I lined it all the way up to the left. And pressed it down. Now I'm going to do the same here to the right. Add my wet adhesive. And I'm lining this one up all the way to the right edge of the chipboard, avoiding that bend in the chipboard to avoid any bulk paper covering that bend, because then you can get cracking, and we don't like cracking in our albums. No, we don't. So there we have it. Now we're going to let this dry before we bend it again, just like we did the first time, because you want to let it dry because that wet adhesive does make the paper weaker. And so let that dry. And while it's drying all flat like this, we can cut our pages. I'm switching to 110-pound cardstock now because I like my pages to be nice and sturdy. So with your 110-pound cardstock, you're going to cut 4 pieces that measure 4 1/4 by 6, and that is going to be your page size. So we're not going to do anything to these. We're going to leave them at 4 1/4 by 6. And then you need to cut 4 pieces of 110-pound cardstock at 4 1/4 by 7 inches. With these 4 pieces, the 7-inch pieces, we are going to score them. So go ahead and get your scoreboard. You're going to line your piece of 4 1/4 by 7 inches up onto the 7-inch side, and you're going to score at a 1/2 inch, and you're going to score at 6.5 inches, so that there's a 1/2 inch score line on both sides. We're going to go ahead and fold and crease both of those score lines so that your piece looks like this. Go ahead and take your second piece of 4 1/4 by 7 and do the same scores at a 1/2 inch and 6.5 inches. Your third piece, 1/2 inch and 6.5. And your fourth piece at 1/2 inch and 6.5 inches. Go ahead and fold and crease all of the score lines on all of the pieces that we just scored. Like so. You can get rid of our scoreboard. I'm going to take another drink real quick. And what we're going to do, excuse me, is line this piece of 6.25 by 6 inches on top of our pieces that we scored, so they line up to make one pocket page. Okay, so we can add our glue here to our bottom hinge and our top hinge. I'm going to line the bottom up here. As straight as I can get it, and holding down the middle so that it doesn't bubble up, I'm going to line up the top piece as well. Use my bone folder to really press down. And there we have our first pocket page. Go ahead and do that to the other 3 pieces. Adding my glue, adding my 4.5 or 4.25 by 6 inch piece to the piece that we scored. Lining them up the best I can and pressing down with my bone folder. And there's our second pocket page. Here's number 3. Adding my glue. Line it up here. Press down with my bone folder. Get that glue spread around under there and really stuck to each other. Page 3. And here goes page 4. Adding my glue. Lining up my cardstock. And pressing down. There we have our 4 pocket pages. A little tip I like to do so that I make sure I add the correct interactions to the correct pages is that I like to number them. So I'll go page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now that we've given this time to dry, I would like you to take a soft bone folder, okay? Do not use a metal score tool to do this because you can very easily rip your paper. But we are going to crease where our chipboard meets here on our cover. And as you're creasing, you can slowly start to bend your cover forward. Like so. Okay, there's the first one. And here is the second one. Like I said, I like to wait for my wet adhesive to dry before I do this because the wet adhesive does make that cardstock weaker. And so as I'm creasing, I'm gently starting to lift this up to bend it. And there we have our binding with the hinge mechanism in place. It should look like this. Different angles. And I still have some recording time left, so let's go ahead and add our flaps and pockets to our inside and back covers. Still using 110-pound cardstock. You need 2 pieces that measure 4 inches by 5.5 inches. Those are your flaps, okay? And then for your pockets, you need 2 pieces of 5 3/8 inches by 3.5 inches. Like I said, the pockets and the flaps are the exact same size on the front and back covers. So take out your scoreboard again, and let's start with our flaps, our flippy flaps. That's the 2 pieces that measure 4 inches by 5.5 inches. On your scoreboard, put it down to the 5.5 inch mark here, and you're going to score at 1/2 inch. And you're going to do that to both of the flaps. Score at 1/2 inch. You can go ahead and fold and crease those. Now, optionally, you can round the corners of the opposite side. So the opposite side that you scored on. I'm going to go ahead and round my corners because I like that look. I use the 10 mm size to do all of my corner rounding. So I'm doing that to both of my flaps. Like I said, it's optional. You totally don't have to round the corners. It's just if you'd like to. I prefer that look. So now you can take your 2 pieces that you cut for your pockets that measure 5 3/8 by 3.5 inches. And we're going to do some more scoring. So put it down on the 5 3/8 inch side, and we're going to score at 1/2 inch. We're going to rotate it to the right and score at 1/2 inch. We're going to rotate to the right once again and score one more time at 1/2 inch. Do the exact same scores to your other pocket. On the 5 3/8 inch side, score at 1/2 inch. Rotate it to the right, 1/2 inch. Rotate it to the right, 1/2 inch. We're going to fold and crease these score lines on both pockets. And then we are going to cut our corners off. So you can see there is a little square here and a square here where our score lines cross. And all you need to do is take your scissors and cut at a diagonal like that. We're going to do that on on both corners of both pockets. Just a simple diagonal cut right there on the corner. Like so. Let's get rid of our scoreboard again. And let's add our pockets here to our cover. I will take my adhesive eraser here and get rid of some of these dried glue marks. I'll clean it up some more before I come back for part 2. But in the meantime, we're going to line your pocket up here on the inside front cover, making sure you avoid that crease again, okay? Because you don't want that pocket, the edge of this pocket, to interfere with that crease, because then your cover will not bend properly. So if you like to use your double-sided tape to add pockets, you go right ahead and do that. I'm using my wet adhesive, my Barely Arts. And I'm lining it up here to the left, avoiding that crease. There's about 1/8 of an inch space between the right edge of my pocket and where that crease is in the chipboard. I'm going to do the same thing with this other pocket. Excuse me. I'm going to line this one up to the right edge. Again, making sure there's about 1/8 of an inch space between the left edge of my pocket and that crease in the chipboard. We don't want it interfering with the fold. I'm going to use my bone folder here to press down. Like so. And there are 2 pockets installed inside our binding. Now we can take our flaps and add them here. Now, I like to try to get it in as close to the middle as I can, and leaving about the same amount of space on the left and right side. I'm just eyeballing it here. If you're one of those people who like to measure and make sure it's lined up in the middle, you go ahead, but I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm an eyeballer. I like to open my flap and press down on that hinge there. And we're going to add our second flap to the back cover. Again, lining it, eyeballing it into the middle so there's the same amount of space on the left and right sides. That looks good enough to me. I'm pressing down. I'm going to open the flap and press down again, because we still have a little more time. Let's go ahead and add our magnets to our flaps. Now, the magnets are optional. You don't have to have the magnets, but if you do, I order mine on Amazon. They are 10mm by 1mm magnets. They look like this. What I'm going to do is get myself a piece of a 1/2 inch double-sided tape, and I'm going to place my magnet right there in the middle of my double-sided tape. About a 1/2 inch from the top of my flap, I'm going to add the magnet. I like to use my bone folder to really press down the tape and get that magnet held on there well. Then I'm going to take my second magnet and I'm going to let it naturally attract itself to the other magnet. I'm going to pick it up just like it is, okay? Making sure that attracted side is facing down, and I'm going to set it on top of the sticky part of the double-sided tape, and then I'm going to let it catch again so that it looks like this and the magnets are on top of each other. Then I'm just going to simply fold my flap down and press. So that double-sided tape is now stuck to my pocket, and I'm going to use my bone folder to crease it down, press it down. And we'll do the same thing to this back pocket. And if you don't want to use magnets, you see we're adding these magnets before we add any designer paper, any patterned paper to the 110-pound cardstock. The magnets have to go on before the pattern paper, but if you want to use Velcro dots, you would add those after you've added your pretty patterned paper, right? Magnets before the pretty paper, Velcro dots after the pretty paper. It's totally up to you. So I put my first magnet down with that double-sided tape. I'm going to get a second magnet and let it attract itself to the first. I'm going to pick it up just like it is and set it down just like it is on the sticky side of the tape, and then let it attach itself to the other magnet again. Simply fold my flap over and press down. And now that double-sided tape is stuck to my pocket. And we have a magnetic closure. So there's that. Because we still have some more time before I cut this video off, let's go ahead and add our few little interactive elements to our pages, okay? So for reference, I'll show you this again. Page 1 has the vertical belly band, and that's what we're going to work on first. So get your page 1 ready. For your belly band, you need a piece of 2.5 inches by 7 inches of, again, 110-pound cardstock. You're going to need your scoreboard, so get that back out and line up your piece of 2.5 by 7 on the 7-inch side, and you're going to score at 1/2 inch and 6.5 inches. Go ahead and fold and crease those score lines. Get your page number 1, and we're going to add our belly band. I'm going to try to get it. I'm going to eyeball the center here, leaving the same amount of space on the left and the right sides. Looks good enough for me. I'm pressing down to make sure that glue gets spread around and the belly band gets stuck to page 1. There we have it. Easy peasy. Pages 2 and 3, if you remember, are just plain pages with pretty pattern paper. And pages 4 and 5 have the 2 side pockets. So that's their last little addition. So take your pages number 4 and 5. If you took my advice and numbered them, it'll be easy to find them. And then you're going to need to cut yourself 2 pieces, again 110-pound cardstock. Cut them at 3 inches wide by 7 inches tall. You need 2 of those, one for page 4 and one for page 5. Set it down on your scoreboard, and you're going to score at 1/2 inch. Okay, if you line it up to the 7-inch side, you're going to score at 1/2 inch. You're going to turn it to the right and score at 1/2 inch again, like so. And then you're going to turn it a third time to the right and score at 1/2 inch again. We're going to do that for this piece too. We're going to score at, on the 7-inch side, 1/2 inch. Rotate it to the right. Score at 1/2 inch. Rotate it to the right and score at 1/2 inch. Go ahead and fold and crease these score lines. On both of our little side pockets. Just like the other pockets we did, we're going to cut the corners off. So where the score lines meet, there's a little square, and we're just going to cut that off by cutting diagonally right there. We're going to do that for both pieces. Okay. Again, you're cutting that square off just by doing a simple diagonal cut, like so. You can get rid of your scoreboard for good now. You're going to take your pages 4 and 5. On page 4, you're going to line your pocket up to the left side of the page, like so. And we're going to glue it down. Lining it up the best we can. And take my bone folder and press down on all 3 sides, like so. And then on page 5, we're going to line our pocket up on the right side of the page so that they're opposites each other. Add my glue to my hinges. And line this up here on the right. Making sure it's as even as I can get it. There we have it, guys. So now we are right at a little over an hour, and I am going to end the tutorial. I will be back for part 2, and all we have left to do is to mat our pages. So I do have all the mats already cut out. I have the measurements written down for you, so it'll be easy peasy. And then once we put on all of the pretty pattern paper, we will add our pages onto the hinges, add our seam binding closure, and then add our front sorry our mats to our front, back covers, and our spine. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below, and I will get back to you. If you need additional help, please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. My handle is the same over there, at your underscore crafty underscore BFF, over on Instagram as well. So if you're not following me there, make sure you do so. Send me a message and I can help you walk through any additional help you need, but hopefully you won't. Hopefully the tutorial is nice and clear. People say that I do make easy tutorials to follow, so awesome sauce there. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in part 2. Bye.